Three of Cups. This is today's card, or the card that represents the 10-degree period that we're in right now. It winds up being the Three of Cups, abundance. It's Jupiter, excuse me, it's Mercury in Cancer. And you're usually happy to see this card come up. So I hope you're happy to see this card come up today. If it's your birthday, you were born between July 2nd and July 11th, this is my birthday card. Oh, did I mention my birthday? I always try to keep my birthday July 11th. I try to keep it really secret. And because, I'm embarrassed when, people make a big thing out of my birthday July 11th. So I hardly ever mention July 11th as being my birthday, but it is again this year. It'll be my 73rd July the 11th. I wear a kind of an extra large, and I enjoy gifts of money. Anyway, we're going a little punchy here because of the chaos of the getting ready to move. But anyway, I am reading from you for a second day in a row from the book Equinox Volume 3, Number 9. Which is the Holy Books of Thelema. Now, what I'm going to read for you today is in this volume, but it is not officially a Class A document. Class A material from Crowley. Class A material are things that were like received. They were channeled, if you will. And so there's 13 of those, and they are actually called the Holy Books of Thelema. And because they were channeled, Crowley doesn't take any responsibility for their content. They're supposed to be appreciated and enjoyed on a more subtle level. You don't argue with what it says. You don't attempt to change the style or a letter of any of the Class A documents. You just they are what they are. There they are. Make of it what you will, and don't let anybody unduly comment to you or try to tell you what they mean. That's pretty cool. But what I'm going to read for you today, a short little thing, is Liber 61, Vel Causae. And it's the AA preliminary lection, including the history lection. Okay? And this is very timely because we just got through reading, I don't know where it is now, right now, my novel, my screenplay novel, Revolt of the Magicians, which covers the period of time during the breakup of the Golden Dawn and the scandal and the schism and the magical duels back and forth with the characters in the historic characters of the Golden Dawn, right about the turn of the 20th century. And this history lection is sort of like the official statement coming from Crowley, at least his view of what led to his formation of his AA, the system of scientific illuminism that Crowley would preach, I guess. or expand upon for the rest of his life. So, in a way, this is the official party line, if you will, of what happened. And there's a lot of initials and things because Golden Dawn people didn't call each other by name; they called each other by the initials of their motto. And I'll try to keep the characters straight here. Now, if this was a real Class A document, I wouldn't stop and make any comments. But because this is a Class D document, and which is just official rituals and instruction. So, the preliminary lection. In the name of in the name of the initiator. Amen. In the beginning was initiation. The flesh profiteth nothing. The mind profiteth nothing. That which is unknown to you and above these, while firmly based upon their equilibrium, giveth life. In all systems of religion is to be found a system of initiation, which may be defined as the process by which a man comes to learn that unknown crown. Though none can communicate either the knowledge or the power to achieve this, which we may call the great work, it is yet possible for initiates to guide others. Every man must overcome his own obstacles, expose his own illusions. Yet others may assist him to do both, and they may enable him altogether to avoid many of the false paths leading no whither, which tempt the weary feet of the uninitiated pilgrim. They can further ensure that he is duly tried and tested. For there are many who think themselves to be masters who have not even begun to tread the way of service that leads thereto. Now the great work is one, and the initiation is one, and the reward is one. However diverse are the symbols wherein the unutterable is clothed. Here, then, the history of the system which this lection gives you the opportunity of investigating. Listen, we pray you, with attention. For once only does the great order knock at any one door. Whoso knows any member of that order as such can never know another, until he too has attained mastery. Here, therefore, we pause that you may thoroughly search yourself and consider if you are yet fitted to take the irrevocable step. For the reading of that which follows is recorded. The history lection. Some years ago, a number of cipher manuscripts were discovered and deciphered by certain students. They attracted much attention as they purported to derive from the Rosicrucians. You will readily understand that the genuineness of the claim matters no whit, such literature being judged by itself and not by its reputed sources. Among the manuscripts was one which gave the address of a certain person living in Germany, who is known as SDA. Now, SDA is the initials of the motto, Sapien Dominabitur Astris. The wise will rule the stars. And it's attributed to a certain Fräulein Springel in Germany. And I say attributed to. So among the manuscripts was one that gave the address of a certain person living in Germany who is known to us as SDA. Those who discovered the ciphers wrote SDA, and in accordance with instructions received, an order was founded which worked in a semi-secret manner. After some time, SDA died. Further requests for help were met with a prompt refusal from the colleagues of SDA. It was written by one of them that SDA's scheme had always been regarded with disapproval. But since the absolute rule of the adepts is never to interfere with the judgment of any person whomsoever, how much more than one of themselves, and that one most highly revered, they had refrained from active opposition. The adept who wrote this added that the order had already quite enough knowledge to enable it or its members to formulate a magical link with the adepts. Shortly after this, one called SRMD, that's McGregor Mathers. SRMD is the initials of Royal is my race. Shortly after this, one called SRMD announced that he had formulated such a link, and that himself and two others were to govern the order. Those two others were Woodman and Win Westcott. New and revised rituals were issued, and fresh knowledge poured out in streams. We must pass over the unhappy juggleries which characterize the next period. And I'll digress for a second and say much of what my novel dealt with was the period of the unhappy juggleries. It has been throughout proved impossible to elucidate the complex facts. That's very true. We content ourselves then with observing that the death of one of his two colleagues, and the death was of Woodman. Woodman was the one who died, leaving Westcott and Mathers in charge. So we content ourselves with observing that the death of one of his two colleagues and the weakness of the other secured to SRMD, McGregor Mathers, the sole authority. The rituals were elaborated, though scholarly enough, into verbose and pretentious nonsense. The knowledge proved worthless even where it was correct, for it is in vain that pearls, be they never so clear and precious, are given to swine. Now remember, this is not a Class A document. Okay, there's a lot of Crowley's own biases and opinions that have seeped into this document, and it's very clear. Nonetheless, everything he says is, in important levels, absolutely correct. The orders were turned into contempt, it being impossible for anyone to fail therein. Unsuitable candidates were admitted for no better reason than their worldly prosperity. In short, the order failed to initiate. Scandal arose, and with it schism. In 1900, one P, now when he talks about P, the letter P, he's talking about himself, Frater Perdurabo. Okay, that's his neophyte name in the Golden Dawn. In a certain sense, he will always remain Perdurabo. It's not that when it's not that you stop becoming a neophyte. It's that you sort of take your neophyteness with you as you climb up the tree of life and into higher grades. So in other words, as you climb the tree of life and attain, in essence, the level of consciousness associated with that sphere, you don't lose the you that you were in number 10 Malkuth when you rise to number 9 Yesod. You bring your Malkuth with you. You bring your 10 with you into 9. And you bring your 10 and 9 with you into number 8. So in a sense, you're turning yourself, each level of those consciousnesses is a magical motto in and of themselves, is a magical persona in and of themselves, is a magical vessel in and of itself, vibrating at that level of frequency of consciousness. So even though Crowley and everybody hits all those higher levels of consciousness, you never stop being what you never completely lose the old you. So in the holy books of Thelema, different yous are talking to with each other throughout, and that's what makes the holy books of Thelema sort of difficult to grasp what's going on, because you talk about the magister said this, and the adept said this, and then I said that, and then the scribe said this, and they're all you. They're all you. It's all your internal dialogue. The smarter you, the higher you talking to the lower yous, and the lower yous complaining to the higher you. I'm sure I completely confused you there. Anyway. Scandal arose, and with it schism. In 1901, P, a brother, instituted a rigorous test of SRMD. On the one side of the order, on one side, and the order on the other. Okay, so Crowley, as Frater P, got to a point where he felt himself identified with the order, and he was starting to question SRMD, and so he put him to a test. Okay, so in 1901, P, a brother, instituted a rigorous test of SRMD on the one side and the order on the other. He discovered that SRMD, though a scholar of some ability and a magician of remarkable powers, had never attained complete initiation, and further, had fallen from his original place. He, having imprudently attracted to himself forces of evil too great and terrible for him to withstand. We're talking about Mathers here. The claim of the order that the true adepts were in charge of it was definitely disproved. Now, if you can project into the little pantomime of my screenplay novel, that's sort of the point I was trying to make, okay, with the battle between Mathers and Moina and Crowley. Okay, moving on. In the order with two certain exceptions and two doubtful ones, he found no persons prepared for initiation of any sort. He thereupon, by his subtle wisdom, destroyed both the order and its chief. So, I love Crowley. Being himself no perfect adept, he was driven of the spirit of the wilderness where he abode for 6 years, studying by the light of reason the sacred books and secret systems of initiations of all countries and ages. Finally, there was given unto him a certain exalted grade, whereby a man becomes master of knowledge and intelligence, and no more their slave. He perceived the inadequacy of science, philosophy, and religion, and exposed the self-contradictory nature of the thinking faculty. Returning to England, he laid his achievements humbly at the feet of a certain adept, DDS. Now, DDS is, I think I've got, I'm not sure what that stands for, but DDS is George Cecil Jones. His buddy, George Cecil Jones. We met him in my book, too. He got Crowley into the Golden Dawn, really. Let's see. He laid his achievements humbly at the feet of a certain adept, DDS, who welcomed him brotherly, and admitted his title to the grade which he had so hardly won. Thereupon these two adepts conferred together, saying, May it not be written that the tribulations shall be shortened? Therefore they resolved to establish a new order, which should free itself from the errors and deceits of the former one. Without authority, they could not do this, exalted as their rank was among adepts. They resolved to prepare all things, great and small, against the day when such authority should be received by them. Since they knew not where to seek for higher adepts than themselves, but knew that the true way to attract the notice of such was to equilibrate the symbols. The temple must be builded before the God can indwell it. Therefore, by the order of DDS, by the order of George Cecil Jones, did P. Crowley prepare all things by his arcane science and wisdom, choosing only those symbols which were common to all systems, and rigorously rejecting all names and words which might be supposed to imply any religious or metaphysical theory. To do this utterly was found impossible. Since all language has a history, and the use, for example, of the word spirit implies the scholastic philosophy and Hindu and Taoist theories concerning the breath of man. So it was difficult to avoid implication of some undesirable bias by using the words order or circle or chapter or society, brotherhood, or any other to designate the body of initiates. Deliberately, therefore, did he take refuge in vagueness, not to veil the truth to the initiate, but to warn him against valuing non-essentials. Should therefore the candidate hear the name of any god, let him not rashly assume that it refers to any known god, save only the God known to himself. Isn't that so cool? Or should the ritual speak in terms, however vague, which seem to imply Egyptian, Taoist, Buddhist, Indian, Persian, Greek, Judaic, Christian, or Muslim philosophy? Let him reflect that this is a defect of language, the literary limitation, and not the spiritual prejudice of the man P. Especially let him guard against finding definite sectarian symbols in the teaching of his master, and the reasoning from the known to the unknown, which assuredly will tempt him. We labor earnestly, dear brother, that you may never be led away to perish upon this point. For thereon have many holy and just men been wrecked. By this have all visible systems lost the essence of wisdom. We have sought to reveal the Arcanum. We have only profaned it. Now, when P had thus with bitter toil prepared all things under the guidance of DDS, even as the hand writes and the conscious brain, though ignorant of the detailed movement, applauds or disapproves the finished work, there was a certain time of repose, as the earth lieth fallow. Meanwhile, these adepts busied themselves intently with a great work. In the fullness of time, even as a blossoming tree that beareth fruit in its season, all these pains were ended. And these adepts and their companions obtained the reward which they had sought. They were to be admitted to the eternal and invisible order that hath no name among men. And I pause to observe that the words eternal and the word invisible and the word order are capitalized, the first capital letters. Sometimes Crowley does that to spell out something. And in this particular sentence, we might at least consider that when he said they were to be admitted to the EIO that hath no name among men. They were to be admitted to the eternal and invisible order that hath no name among men. And I pause to do that just because the I picks that out when you read it in person. They therefore who had with smiling faces abandoned their homes, their possessions, their wives, their children, in order to perform the great work, could with steady calm and firm correctness abandon the great work itself. For this is the last and greatest projection of the alchemist. Now, that happens at the consciousness level of number 3 on the tree of life. Bina, and the great is master of the temple. So also one VVVVV, and that'll be Crowley's initials as a master of the temple. Also one VVVVV arose, an exalted adept of the rank of master of the temple, or this much he disclosed to the exempt adepts, and his utterance is enshrined in the sacred writings. Okay, so even though Crowley, in crossing the abyss, as every master of the temple has done, still below the abyss he's left, I guess we'd say, the remnants of all his other grades and titles. There's a charged and energized P down there, what's his, I want to say OM. But anyway, the lower personas still have life. They are just not attached to the master of the temple. He disclosed, and his utterance is enshrined in the sacred writings, such are Liber Legis, Liber Cordis Cincti Serpente, Liber Libriae Vel Lapis Lazuli, and others whose existence may one day be divulged unto you. He's referring to the holy books of the Liber. Beware, you interpret them either in the light or in the darkness, for only in LVX may they be understood. He also conferred upon DDS, George Jones, OM, that's also Crowley, Ome, and another authority, the Triad, who in turn have delegated it unto others, and they yet again, so that the body of initiates may be perfect, even from the crown to the kingdom beyond. For perfection abideth not in the pinnacles, or in the foundations, but in the ordered harmony of one with all. So, that's Liber 61 Vel Causae. Tomorrow we'll do something fun for Sunday school. I hope you will forgive my digressions and things today, and please, everyone, constantly remember that on certain levels, everything I say is untrue, okay? But true, I try to make it. I wrote a poem that said that. As soon the words escape my lips which wish I had never spake it, okay? But like Crowley has told us here, that's a defect in language, and I do the best I can. So continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.